So let's start with an example of traditional server-side rendering. As we know right now, we got change on page, we have to reload everything and do the same process again and again. This costs a lot of resources because we have to re-render all our data and the HTML every time we want to switch between URL. Then we get the single page application. So first of all, from the browser, we send a request to our CDN, and we get as an answer an HTML with a JavaScript, but this HTML is empty because we don't have the data yet. So we get this loader. So we need to check the API, send a request, and get back the data as a response to get our content. And then we got, finally, the universal application, which is the best of the two worlds. So we get the request from the browser on our server. This server has to be a Node.js server because he has to run the JavaScript on the back end. Then he does the API request, get back the JSON data, and then, as the first example, the classic rendering, we get our HTML with the data inside, in this case, plus our JavaScript. And if we continue to navigate through the websites, we're going to call only the API and no more hits on the server. So we get less cost because every time you're going to ask data to the server, it's going to be only JSON with the data needed on your application. So when you want to work now with this web application system and the API, RESTful API, you have to split your team in two worlds, the backend part and the front-end part. So that's good because I'm talking to the front-end part today. So the data business logic API with Java, Go, PHP goes to the backend. And the front-end has to be just focused on design resources, UI, UX. So only working on HTML, CSS, style in most of the case, and JavaScript. So with this architecture, you can work more easily with teams. So you only need to talk with JSON language with your backend friends or team. So what is Nuxt? So Nuxt is generator of Vue.js app server rendered. So it's universal. That means you're going to have a Node.js server who's going to run your Vue.js application on the backend and renders the HTML with all the data filled inside. So the requirement to create your Vue.js application server rendered, if you try to create by yourself, is a Node server. It's a Vue.js library, of course, plus the Vue server render module, the Vue router, because you need to manage all your routes, Vue meta, because you need to optimize your search engine. With all the meta tags, you need to update on every route. And you may need to use a store for a large application and use Vuex. The major dependency we got with Nuxt is Webpack for Babel 7, Post CSS. I know it's a weird logo because we are in the church, so don't be afraid. And Vue 2. So this dependency allows you to work with all the tools, modern tools we use. You're going to be able to optimize all your resources by default and be focused only on your code. No matters about what your CSS has to be minified, reduce the style, code splitting, all the stuff. We're going to do it for you with all these major dependency. So in Nuxt, we introduce for people who are used to use Vue.js, we don't have very much convention. It's pretty free. So you are free to put your component in folder, name, Coimbra, you are free to put your plugin in another folder. There's not really some convention. So with Nuxt, we put some convention and a folder structure to be able to work as a team and share your project easily. And we predefine this structure, and it's still optional, of course. So if you read these names, it's pretty easy to understand. We get folder name assets, another one named components, layout, module, pages. It's pretty simple to read. But at the same time, it allows you to redefine it because it's fully optional. As some tasks can be duty in the JavaScript world, like managing some router or store, you have to recreate every time some configuration. So when it's a task you have to repeat too many times, what we decide to do with Nuxt is to automatically regenerate this file. So we introduce the automatic routing generator. So it's pretty bad. So you imagine if this is the router file. So every time you want to create a new route, you have to define the path. You have to define which component it's going to call, the name of this one, and also the parameters. If you want also to do a code splitting, you have to be aware about how you import your components into this router. But with Nuxt, what we define is inside this page directory, every time you want to create a new route, you just simply create a file with this name. So for this use case, inside the page directory, we get a folder, name underscore feed, with a page inside, name underscore page, and also item, all the rest. What Nuxt gonna do behind the hood, it's gonna generate the router for you with the code splitting and all the optimization by default. So in this case, you're gonna have some routes like /items/ dynamic ID, because it's prefixed by an underscore. And you're gonna have code splitting for this page. So if the user doesn't go on this URL, the JavaScript and HTML and CSS, all the resources inside this component are not going to be called. So the first hint of your web application is going to be only the CSS, HTML, and JavaScript, which is going to be used by your user. We also supercharge the component we get by default on Vue to help you to manage the universal coding. So everything you need to code from backend and frontend at the same time, calling your API and managing the server-side rendering, you will never have to touch your Node.js server. So we introduced for async data fetch has method inside your component to be able to call your API directly from your component. And then if you reload the page, the server is going to trigger this method and call him from the back. We also add some controls like validating some middlewares, which enables you to control access for your route. For example, if you are not logged in or you are logged in. Also, we get the meta tag manager with the tag head and a lot of UI and UX helpers for transition, layout, loading, and some scroll. To be able to use your project and scale with the time, we improve the system with some modularity. So to extend your Nuxt project from the beginning, we add some hooks inside so you can create modules and extend your project with another Nuxt project. So for example, you can imagine to have a Nuxt project who is simply a blog, and then create another Nuxt project with an admin panel. And inside your blog project, you can import the admin panel as a module, so you can have multiple Nuxt projects or Vue app inside your project. So with this solution, you will be able to create almost everything: theming, connection to sockets, admins, panels, extend your page, plugin, everything. We get also a life cycle, so when the server is rebuilding, you get access to everything, so you can inject some dependency, for example. We got some nice module from the community who show you how to use these modules and how to create it. The most famous one are Axios and PWA. The PWA module allows you to create a progressive web app just by adding a single line in your code, and we don't have to forget the logo image. That's all. If you add this to the module with a single line in your config and an image, this module will automatically create the workers, the offline modules, and also resizing the logo to every sizes. Nuxt.js is also versatile. As we get so many functionality available, we will be able to choose your mode and decide if you want a single-page application, set the universal mode if you need some server-side rendering, but also you can generate your website as a static website. One of the best examples is the documentation website, Nuxt.js.org, sorry. Is fully offline, progressive web app, and static generated. So you are welcome to try and visit the website and see the performances. That's our best showcase right now. So that was briefly the features we got. There is so much features available. So the only thing I can say it's for today with the few time I get is to see more on the documentation. So now it's time to describe you why using Nuxt and not keeping the old stack. First of all, our main goal is to make our work more enjoyable. So the development environment, once you install the project, you get nothing to do. It's configured by default. So you're going to be able to use components directly with .vue files. You get the auth module replacement by default. You can use is6 syntax also. We get TypeScript support, autocomplete for VS Code, and way much features. Just that's our main goal, is just to enjoy our work, because we know as a company, developers, we don't have sometimes enough time to enjoy and get some more cool features inside our project. And with that in mind, you don't have to spend so much time. You just download the project and start to code. No configuration, nothing else but just enjoying your time. So, of course, if we do that for development, we have to do it also for the production. So like I said before, as a front-end developer, we have to manage all the rules display for the users, like images, CSS, JavaScript. So performance are really a huge part of our jobs right now as a front-end developer. So we predefine almost everything we need to be able to be in the top scores with Google PW Lighthouse. Thanks. So we get code splitting and critical CSS per root. Like I explained, only what you use is included inside the browser, as, let's say, when the user asks for it. We got also the smart prefetching. Smart prefetching is that we're going to pass all the link you get on the component who is currently rendered, and we're going to prefetch this component before you're going to click. So we're going to have super high scores. Modern mode also. We got also an analyzer from Webpack who allows you to display which part of your JavaScript is taking much space in comparison to another one. We got the cache busting include through Webpack by default, JZip compression, and HTTP2, etc., etc. You're going to see more in our website documentation if you are interested in, but all what you need to know is just everything is configured for you. So you're going to be in the best results for your website with only nothing to configure. So same for when you want to deploy the website on your server. It's production ready, so you get all inside content security policy, server bundle isolation and context isolation, of course, plus the NPM audits and all the stuff. Wow, the time is running so fast. So I think I'm going to escape the demo. But what I want to show you is that everything I explained to you, it's only one line of code for the installation. You can create the project with the npx command from npm or with Yarn by creating an app with this command line only. So some next info about the project. This project has been created in 2016 from my brother and I. We created this project at the beginning because Vue server render was launched with Vue 2 in September 2016. We had to migrate e-commerce website from a stack which was with Express, Node.js, and jQuery in the front. So we would like to have the web app performances, but also the server render to don't break our search engine optimization. So we try to go deep down, and we create this framework because it was a need only. So since this date, we have more than 100 releases, more than 1,000 pull request merge. It's very community-based. We are not a company who try to create a project and selling it. It's very open sources. So we try to do our best to reply to all the issues. So we did a lot since almost 3 years. We have reached more than 20,000 GitHub stars 2 weeks ago. And we get now a full team of developers all around the world. We are 8, so you can see that Sebastian is my brother, and then we get Puya, who joined us, and it was maybe 4 months after the creation of the project. He introduced this module system, which is now the best part of Nuxt.js. So with this idea and with his effort, is improve a little project, a little side project to a big project, very flexible. And he's from Iran. We get also Clark from China, and he's a guy who loves testing the project and be sure everything gonna work after pull request. Guys from Germany, guys from Portugal, guys from everywhere. That's only the core team member, because I cannot put more than 100 persons who help us since the beginning, plus people who try to reply and help every day on our Discord channel and GitHub issues. So with that in mind, we have been said as the 4th fastest growing project on GitHub during the October's conferences in 2018, like 7 months ago, something like that. So we were very proud of that because it's just team effort and community efforts, so that's really good. So if I can motivate you to give a try and want to help and get ID maybe with your business or your project, side project, and want to develop this ID, that's awesome. And last week, we have seen on the JSConf Europe that Nuxt has been used by 5% of the JavaScript devs. So very proud, because if you watch the other solution, I think you cannot read it, but there is Gatsby, Next.js, and Nest. We are the only one who are not founded company, so we just live by our own, no business behind. So that's good to see that everyone can do the same as big company. And luckily, we got all these huge company who are using Nuxt now. in a production. So pretty soon you're going to see the store on Adobe where they are selling their Photoshop solution and other stuff going to be made with Nuxt. So pretty proud of it, and a lot of other company. And finally, one dream came true with my little brother. We get on our office. We are now working full-time on the project since the beginning of the year. So it was just huge. We get support also, who are helping us to get this office and continue to work on it. So it's fully funded by the community, and people like us just give us $2 to continue. So as a conclusion, I did a little bit fast, but I will be happy to answer some questions. And thank you to listen to me. So if you get questions. So who wants to try next now? I know it was pretty fast, but if you get questions, I will be around. Yeah? Wait. He's coming with a mic.
Yeah, because of your name, your last name, and there's other person with the same last name. Is it your brother?
Yes. Yeah, it's my brother. Yeah. We worked together and we created it because we need it as a freelancer. So yeah, it's with my brother.
Yeah, just curiosity.
Yeah, I know it went fast on the slides. Okay, good. Thank you. It's good. Okay. Just in time.
I'm intrigued by the files identifiers and the components identifiers. As you told, the components are identified by a unique ID or a generated ID to use with the routing for the app. That ID generation is static. For instance, if we update or generate an hybrid component during runtime, the ID is generated at server and returned to the client side to generate another component ID to be routed, or only work with previously generated IDs.
So you mean for the page components?
Yeah, for instance, user/user ID. If we create a new user.
Like the ID is dynamically created because you prefix by an underscore? So
but is always the same, or have a part that can be mutated?
It's the same, yeah. It's the same component with the importation, you mean on the router files? Yeah, it's the same due to the optimization, because if you really use the same components, we will not import it twice. You just need one, so yeah.
Okay. I was intrigued by that because, for instance, we can have the same component with slightly differences for one profile to another profile. And I was curious how you guys tackle it. So, but if you say the ID is always the same for a specific component, I'm answered.
Yeah,
thanks.
You can find it on the .next, because we want it to be very open and flexible. So that's the demo I would like to show you. But every time, you create a component here, it's going to be when you launch the command tools, fuck it. A .next folder is generated by Nuxt, so your project is inside, so you can see the router.js file who's going to be generated, and yeah, you're going to see when you run it, you get it here, and you can find the router. So you can see there is an ID with the code splitting who injects the components you get, and then this ID is here. That's the components ID. So then you're going to have a unique ID, and it's going to be code splitting, so imported only on demand.
Okay.
So you can go deeper with this folder.next.
I will take a look.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you.